comes to politics, anything can happen and you just have to be ready for anything. The 6th of June was when the committee postponed the submission of their recommendation to Parliament, and it was supposed to be sometime in May, but then they claimed the parties had not come to a resolution, and so they couldn't conclude on the matter. So they had to postpone it to the 6th of June. And it's all because in the committee there are different parties represented there, and they all have opposing views. Not all the political parties agree for the tuition fees. Some parties are against collectively and some parties are for it collectively. But then they would have to come with a resolution and then find a recommendation on the way forward. And today this was presented. So where this whole thing began was from the budget, the 2023 budget, which was sometime last year, in October last year. It was budget cuts to universities. That budget was adopted, but then over the past few months there has been subsequent budgets coming up, the supplementary budget. So now, because the whole tuition fee is embedded in the Norwegian law, a proposal was now submitted in Parliament to just change the law, to amend the law that is existing on the universities and colleges. And now they've suggested that they include an additional section and then make an amendment to the section 8 in the constitution. It should require students that are coming from outside the EU and the EEA to pay tuition fees, including Switzerland, those outside EU, EEA, and Switzerland. Private universities and colleges that receive state subsidies, they suggested that those subsidies should not be used to cover the educational expenses for the same student group. And fees they were charging then is now what the state universities are proposing to charge. So it would have made sense that since you're going to pay for education, it's just best to pay for the private. But now if you check the tuition fees of those private universities, they have tripled. Because of this amendment where they said the subsidies they give to those private universities should not cover the expenses for the students, for international students, so they also had to increase their tuition fees. So they had to go up while the state universities adopt the tuition fees. So now these are the comments. It's a lot going on here, but I'll take it step by step. So now on to the real comments that the political parties have made. It's important to know those in majority and those not in majority. Now it's just best to know who are against and who are for. So the majority position is the Labour Party, the Conservative Party, the Centre Party, and the Progressive Party. Those are the party that have majority in Parliament, something like that. This majority supports the proposal to introduce tuition fees from students from outside the EU and EEA and Switzerland. And they are of the view that this tuition fee, it challenges the free principle that Norway holds. But still, other countries in Europe are charging tuition fees from students outside their jurisdiction. So it's only wise that Norway does same. And a member from the Progressive Party said they support the proposal and they believe that it's reasonable for students coming from outside the EU and the EEA and Switzerland pay for their education here in Norway. And they are saying that this is a provision of welfare benefits, and if we're talking about welfare, like welfare economics, provision of education and others, when we are talking about that welfare provision by government, it should be for the nationals, and it doesn't make sense for them to extend this welfare benefits to internationals. So it's only wise that Norway should charge tuition fees to those coming from outside this jurisdiction. And they feel that, still on this progressive party, they feel that Norway has grown so much in the educational sector or in the educational market globally, and they feel that tuition fees should not be the only thing that will attract students to Norway. There should be other factors pulling them in. And if there are no other factors pulling them in, they should make an effort to build on those factors to pull them in. And just make sure that the education here is more attractive for them, irrespective of the tuition fees. Because most people are going around saying that it is only the tuition fees that brought them to Norway. They want to prove that statement wrong. And even though that is the reason for now, in future it shouldn't be. So Norway would have to do much more in attracting students rather than just the free education. Those that are against the proposal, that's the Socialist Left Party. They oppose the proposal, and it says it undermines the free principle of education in Norway, and they view the tuition fee as an unsupportive, antisocial, and it's very detrimental to students from economically disadvantaged backgrounds. And it argues that the tuition fees will make higher education accessible to a privileged few, reducing diversity and hindering educational development. So they feel that those that will be coming will only be those that are very privileged, and the blend of people in the country won't be very diverse, so it's just going to bring everything backward. And then the Red Party also criticizes the proposal, and they said it's very important that education is accessible to a diverse number of people and not just skewed to one side. And they also talk about the competence that international students bring to the Norwegian education, just to the country as a whole. The Labour Party also say they are against the tuition fee and they are going to vote against this. And they also talked about the negative impact on this, impact it will bring. And they're talking about how it doesn't align with the UN sustainability goal and what the government have said over the years on the free higher education. Now, you can see here they said they are going to vote against it. So mind you, this whole proposal has not yet been voted for. This is just the recommendation from the political parties to Parliament, and this is what they will be saying in the days to come. So this is what they will be talking about in Parliament in the days to come, where they will vote. So at this point, it's very important to know where the political parties stand, and then you can know if their views can do something in the vote. Because if they claim to be against it, is their vote enough? That's another thing. Now onto the administrative issues the committee have recommended or they have foreseen. The majority, so those that I mentioned earlier that are in favor of this, they claim that yes, they know that there will be administrative issues when they're introducing the tuition fees, but then government will need to coordinate effectively to be able to overcome these challenges. And they also claim that there should be a clearer picture of how the whole thing should be rolled out, and those that are not supposed to be part of the whole tuition fee payment, it should be clear. It should be made clear to people, to schools and to those in charge, or even to the students, that you are exempted or you would have to pay, and everything has to be made clear. And they're also expecting the government will collaborate with institutions to establish a transition solution for the predictability. And this is where my hope is on, because if you are doing a transition, I heard in Sweden it took about 2 years for the whole transition to be made, like to be carried out successfully. 2 years, and here we are 9 months, we want everything to start. So my little hope left is on this transition, that the transition might take a year and they might decide to extend it to next year. That would be the best for everybody. And then finally, they've highlighted that there is limited administrative resources of small educational institution and blah blah blah, importance of cost-effective implementation, because it's very expensive for this, getting bank accounts for getting designated bank accounts for collection of tuition fees. Everything of that sort is going to be very expensive, and they would also need to do so much research into it to see the cost effectiveness of the implementation, if it's going to be cost effective, because it won't make sense that you do this and then you run at loss. Now those in the left party, those are the ones against it. They talked about the problems it has already created, and they criticize the late legal authority and the quick implementation, which is what we've been talking about. I don't think anyone has a case with a country coming up with something that will benefit their country. I don't think anyone has a problem with that. I do not have a problem with that. It's like, do what is best for your country, but then it's just nice to do it right. We're not talking about fairness and equity here, but then just doing what is nice. It's just nice to do it right, because you just came all of a sudden and then you started to talk about charging tuition fees without any prior warning. We understand it is their money, it's their resources, but then it should have just been done in a very good way. So they talked about how it was very expensive. It has already been expensive. It's going to cost some schools money, because I'm sure there will be double payment at some point. So now they've compared it with Sweden's introduction, which I said that there was a 2-year notice period. So people were prepared and they knew, okay, this is the case. We will charge tuition fees in the next 2 years. You guys should get ready. Or was it a marketing strategy that, oh, let them come as soon as they apply? they'll definitely find the money to pay. It could be, because if they say in the next 2 years, it could be because if they say in the next 2 years we'll start charging tuition fees, everybody would want to come this year, and in the next 2 years nobody will come. So it might have probably been a marketing strategy. I don't know. So they talked about how Sweden used 2 years for the notice period, and I think everything went smoothly with them. And they've already expressed concern that if the sector fails to obtain additional income, the proposal will effectively result in reduced allocation for the higher education. So now, fine, they said we should bring money to go to school. They should make sure that indeed we really come with our money to go to school, because if we don't come with money, if we don't come at all, they won't get money. So they should make sure they have additional income somewhere, just in case the students don't show up, they can be able to replace that. And then they talked about the feedback from the sector has not influenced the government's view on the matter. Rectors have talked, student bodies have talked, people have protested, protest upon protest. The students protesting and then the student bodies talking is not the problem. The problem is the rectors that came together to write to these people that, please, it's not going to be feasible to do that this year. If you want, you can postpone it till next year. They said no. They said no. So that is where the problem is. Those are the people inside the system, and they are giving you, they are the frontliners, and they are telling you this is the effect. If you would want to do it, we are hand-tied this year. Let it start next year. But the government refused, and that is the shocking part of the whole thing. So now the next point was on the scholarships and the exceptions for those that are coming. So the majority position, they recognize the importance of international students from countries outside of the EU and EEA for solidarity and the workforce in Norway. This is quite good because, yes, they really do value us. So it's a good point they made. And they also emphasize the need to consider establishing exchange agreements, international cooperation, and other arrangements beyond the EU and EEA. So I think now there will be more exchange programs coming up to different countries and different universities to be able to increase the number of students that come here for exchange programs. So at least if the exchange programs are running every semester, they won't really feel the absence of international students. It's just that the exchange students go back with what they've learned, and just a few how many exchange students can be able to stay after the exchange period. So they really understand that there will be a reduced workforce because we contribute to the workforce in the country. So they support the international goals agreed by the student and highlight the need to support scholarship schemes for student recruitment and safeguard the Norwegian academic environment. So I'm pretty sure that in the coming months or years, there will be more scholarship opportunities opened, which I think it's going to be a good thing. So then you just know you're coming to study and you're not going to be thinking of living expenses and all that, depending on the scholarship they bring. So it's going to be a good thing if they implement the scholarship schemes. And now to the Socialist Left Party. They support the proposed exception to self-payment for international students and believes everything is justified, but then they are asking for additional exceptions, especially for those children. Did I say children? Especially for those from the global south. And they're trying to say exempt those coming from low-income countries. They shouldn't be made to pay tuition fees. So now, what did the committee recommend at the end? So this is a whole technical section where that has the section this, that. So they have proposed that they should introduce a new section 7.1a on personal payments for citizens from countries outside the EEA and Switzerland and EU. So they have, this is what all of them, both those for and against, have come to resolve. And this is what they're saying, that yes, they should introduce the new section 7.1a on personal payment for citizens from countries outside the EEA and Switzerland. And then, yes, state universities and colleges must require personal payment from the students covering at least the institution's cost for education. And 3, the exceptions to self-payment include foreign students with equal treatment rights, those entitled to loans and grants, doctoral candidates, and students covered by institutional exchange collaboration. So as it stands, there are people, as I said in one of my updates, there are people living in the country that have equal rights as the citizens of the country. So that's like foreign citizens. No, that's like foreigners that are citizens of the country. And then those that are entitled to loans and grants already in the country. And then those that are coming to do their PhD will not pay tuition fees. And then students covered by institutional exchange collaboration. That's just exchange students and not going to pay tuition fees. Then the ministry may issue regulations for additional exemptions for students included in nationally funded cooperation programs and other student groups. Then it has been suggested to amend section 8.3 with a new fifth subsection stating that state-subsidized private universities and colleges cannot use subsidies to cover operating costs for student groups required to pay themselves. And then the current 8.3 subsection will now become the 6th and 7th subsections. Interesting law. But then, after the first and second treatment in Parliament, the law will only be in place when the king decides. So if the king decides that this whole thing should start in 2025, the king has spoken. And it still stands that those that were enrolled in 2022 will not pay tuition fee in the next year. So in the autumn semester of 2023. Those that started school last year will not have to pay tuition. Very important dates you should take note of is the 9th and the 12th of June. So the 9th of June is when the first treatment will be held in Parliament. That is when everybody, not just the committee, will come together and deliberate on the matter, and at the end you're going to vote. But this will be taken also to the second treatment. So there will be a second treatment on Monday, which is going to be the final of finals. That is next week Monday on the 12th. So as of now, it's still just the committee's recommendation, but this recommendation gives a clearer view of where you stand now. It just tells you what your school is going to tell you next, that you should bring your money. And I still do not know for the schools that had a deadline of the 10th. First treatment will be on the 9th, and then the 10th is, I think it's a Saturday. So I'm pretty sure on Friday we should know what the main thing is. If it will be started this year or not, it should be clear by then. We hope that those that are debating come up with very valid points that would make them overturn their decision or even postpone. I hope this video was helpful, and don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to leave a comment. And if you're yet to subscribe, please do. And as always, I will see you in the next update. Bye bye.